Hey there. Tonight, we're slipping back in time, not with a sword, but with stories whispered under chainmail and breath. Because while movies love to romanticize the Middle Ages, shining knights, noble quests, heroic last stands, they tend to leave out one little detail. Being a frontline soldier in a medieval army absolutely sucked. No glory, no speeches, just mud in your boots, rot in your wounds, and fear in your chest that never really went away. Tonight's bedtime story isn't about kings or castles. It's about you, pressed into service, shoved into rusted armor that doesn't fit, handed a splintered spear, and told to die for a name you don't even know how to spell. So before you settle in, go ahead and like this video and subscribe if these quiet, grim journeys into history help you sleep, or just remind you that your bad day at work wasn't this bad. Let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is. I love seeing the quiet corner of the world you're listening from. Now dim the lights, maybe pull your blanket a little tighter, and let's begin the slow march into the mud, steel, and silence. Let's find out why it really, truly sucked to be a medieval foot soldier. Congratulations, it's 1415. You don't remember the exact day the messenger came, but you remember the sound of his horse, not the gallop, the breath, shallow, nervous, like even the animal knew what it was carrying. You were digging when he arrived. Nothing important, just a ditch, a line in the dirt that would never hold water. But it gave your hands something to do while your thoughts wandered. And then he called your name, not gently, not like a friend. He read it from a scroll, flat, loud, public, like announcing a death that hadn't happened yet. Everyone turned. Even your mother stopped stirring the pot. Your name. Just your name. And suddenly, you weren't a farmer. You weren't a husband. You weren't anything you'd spent years becoming. You were now a body. Claimed. The crown needed you. They call it the muster. It sounds noble, maybe even organized. But it isn't. It's a list. A very old one. And if you're a man between the age of almost ready and not dead yet, you're on it. Doesn't matter if your knee aches. Doesn't matter if you have children. Doesn't matter if you've never held a weapon longer than a pitchfork. The Lord says it's time. So it's time. There's no ceremony, no parade, no speech, no sword handed to you by a shining knight with a blessing from the heavens. There's just a bundle, crust of bread, a kiss on the cheek that tastes like fear and boiled cabbage, and then the walk. The road to the muster point isn't far, but it feels endless. The mud sucks at your feet like it's trying to keep you home. The wind bites through your tunic. You can still smell the firewood from your own hearth, fading behind you like a forgotten warmth. Others are walking too. Men from the next village. Boys who were chasing chickens yesterday. A blacksmith's apprentice who keeps wiping his hands like he's still covered in soot. No one talks much. What's there to say? You've all been taken. The muster point is just a field. Not a camp. Not a fortress. Just a patch of open land that's seen too many seasons and too few victories. There's a tent, a pile of spears, a priest reciting something you can't quite hear over the wind, and a knight. You think he's a knight anyway. His armor is polished, his horse is tall, and he speaks like someone who's never had to dig his own root cellar. He doesn't look at you when he talks. He looks through you. You are here to serve, not to live. Not to fight. Just serve. Like a dish. Like a sentence. Like a number that might not be needed tomorrow. You're assigned a captain. He doesn't smile. He barely blinks. He hands you a spear, too long, too splintered, and nods like he's done something generous. You don't know how to hold it. You try anyway. Your fingers are used to tools. Not weapons. Not yet. But they will be. You sleep on the ground that night. No tent. No mat. Just dirt and sky and the shape of the man next to you breathing in rhythms that don't match your own. You thought war would start with noise. But it starts with waiting. And your thoughts are louder than drums. At dawn, they take attendance. It feels strange to hear your name again, like it belongs to someone else now. Like it's been stolen, then sold back to you at a discount. You raise your hand. So do the others. And just like that, you exist again. As a head to be counted. As meat to be moved. They teach you formations. Loosely. Mostly they yell. Stand straight. Hold your shield higher. Don't point that at your own face. It's not training. It's desperation in motion. Because time is short. And the enemy won't wait for you to learn how not to die. Your body aches in new ways. Your shoulders scream. Your calves feel like stone. Your blisters have blisters. And still, you're the lucky one. Because you have both arms. Because you haven't been trampled. Because the man next to you hasn't stabbed you yet by accident. Yet. They issue armor. If you can call it that. You get a padded jacket. Stiff with old sweat and someone else's fear. A dented helmet that doesn't quite fit. A round shield that smells like mold and failure. You strap it on like a costume. But it doesn't feel like protection. It feels like pretense. Like hope stitched into canvas and left to rot. Someone makes a joke. Something about glory. Something about women. Something about how he hopes he dies early, before the real suffering starts. You all laugh. Too hard. Too loud. Because laughter is cheaper than courage. And it fills the silence just long enough to forget where you are. A messenger arrives. He speaks to the captain. The captain frowns. The captain leaves. No one tells you what he said. But the next morning, the tents are packed. The wagons roll out. And the knight tightens his gloves. It's time. You don't know who you're fighting. You don't know where you're going. You only know this. You won't be the same when you come back. If you come back, you walk in silence. The road stretches out like a sentence no one wanted to write. And somewhere ahead, beyond the fog, beyond the hill, beyond the names you'll never learn, is a battlefield. And you? You're the ink. The first step is the hardest. Not because of the weight. Because of the sound. The sound of everything behind you. The creak of the barn door you may never open again. The distant bark of a dog that won't remember your smell a year from now. The crackle of a fire you didn't have time to smother. And then the silence. That awful silence that follows you into the woods, past the last fence post, down the winding road that leads away from home and into somewhere else entirely. You don't know where you're going, but it smells like iron and sounds like thunder. The march begins before the sun finishes rising. Not that anyone told it to. It just does. Because war doesn't wait for dawn. And neither does the captain. You shoulder your pack. You grip your spear. You fall in line. Left, right, left, right. The rhythm isn't comforting. It's oppressive. Because the road doesn't care about your feet. And the miles don't care about your name. Your boots are already soaked. Not from rain. From morning dew and yesterday's mistakes. From puddles that weren't there 5 minutes ago. From mud that pulls like memory. Every step is a negotiation. Every squelch a curse. You'd give anything for dry socks. You'd give anything for a cart. But the carts are for the lords. For the supplies. For the barrels of salted meat and the kegs of water that tastes like wood. You walk. Because that's what soldiers do. Until they don't. The first day is long. Not in hours. In bones. You feel your back compress. Your shoulders pull forward. Your neck stiffens like it wants to detach itself from this mess entirely. You try to adjust your pack. It doesn't help. You try to whistle. Your lips are too dry. You try to think of anything else. But all you can see is the line of bodies in front of you. And the road that never ends. They say war makes men. But so far, it's just making blisters. Your heel feels like it's bleeding. You can't be sure. You're too tired to bend. Your thighs burn. Your calves tremble. Your hands go numb from the way you've been gripping the shaft of your spear. Someone coughs behind you. A dry, hollow sound. No one turns. Because to turn is to slow. And slowing means being seen. And being seen means being shouted at. So you walk. Breaks are brief, miserly. 10 minutes at the edge of a brook, if you're lucky. Enough time to chew on something that might have been bread a few days ago. You soak your feet. You drink too fast. You stare into the water like it might offer advice. It doesn't. Then the horn blows. The captain shouts. And you're moving again. Just like that. By evening, the forest has changed. What was green is now gray. What was familiar is now foreign. And the sounds, they never stop. Birds, insect, the distant howl of something too big to name. You camp near a tree line. Not in it. That would be too dangerous. Tents go up. Fires flicker. You're too tired to eat. Too sore to sleep. You lie back on your rolled-up cloak and stare at the stars. They don't blink. And neither do you. Morning comes like a thief. No warning. No apology. Your joints resist the call to rise. Your spine argues. But you stand anyway. Because everyone else is standing. And you're not ready to be the first one left behind. Left, right, again. There's a boy in the line beside you. Barely grown. Freckles where a beard should be. He hums to himself when he thinks no one's listening. You hear it anyway. A lullaby. Or maybe a prayer. You don't ask. You just keep walking. Because words are expensive out here. And silence is the only thing no one charges for. By the third day, you forget what you looked like before this. Your feet are swollen. Your clothes stink. Your belt feels looser, even though the road hasn't. You start to name the aches. Knee, back, shoulder, left toe. You speak to them like companions. They're the only ones who won't leave you. Rain comes on the fourth night. It doesn't fall. It arrives. First as mist. Then as warning. Then as an uninvited flood. Your cloak soaks through in minute. Your pack doubles in weight. Your breath turns to fog. No fire. No warmth. Just shivering under a tree that leaks from every branch. No one complains. No one has the energy. You chew on a piece of salted pork that tastes like leather and try to pretend it helps. It doesn't. The next morning, 3 men are gone. Deserted, they say. Cowards, they spit. But you don't speak. Because part of you envies them. And another part, a quieter, smaller part, is afraid you might be next. You start dreaming while awake. Of home. Of warm beds and hot soup. Of hands that touch without trembling. But the dream ends with the snap of reins and the bark of orders. Because this isn't home. This is war. Not yet arrived, but already present. Already pressing down on your lungs like a question no one will answer. You lose track of days. Time becomes footstep. Hunger. Blisters that burst, then blister again. You walk beside men whose names you never ask. Because names are hopeful. And hope is heavy. Better to be light. Better to be empty. A village appears in the distance. You think it might be friendly. You hope it has bread. But the shutters are closed. The door's barred. A woman peeks from a window and vanishes. You feel more ghost than man. Even the dogs won't bark. By now, your armor's chafed your skin raw. Your spear has a permanent place in your grip. Your boots have learned to weep. You barely recognize your own scent. Salt, mud, fear. You smell like someone who used to matter. And now? You march, and march, and march. Until one day the road ends. Not literally, but metaphorically. The trees thin. The hills flatten. The air thickens. And on the horizon, a flag. Not yours. Which means theirs. Which means soon. Which means battle. You grip your spear. Your foot finds one last patch of dry ground. And you whisper to no one. Let it not be today. But it is. It is today. And tomorrow will be worse. You don't get to choose it. Your armor, that is. It isn't fitted to your body. It isn't forged for your name. It doesn't gleam like the paintings say it should. It's handed to you, piece by piece, like charity. Like penance. Like someone else wore it and didn't need it anymore. You wonder, briefly, if he died in it. First comes the gambeson. A padded coat. Thick. lumpy. It smells like wool and vinegar and something older. Something sour that the sun couldn't quite chase away. You slide it on. It resists. It clings like it remembers a different shape. One broader, maybe. Or bent differently from battle. You tug the laces closed. You feel them pinch. It weighs more than you thought. Not heavy like stone. Heavy like memory. Like a burden disguised as fabric. Then come the plates. You don't get many. This isn't a storybook. You don't get full armor. You get what's available. A breastplate with one strap frayed. A half shin of greave. An elbow cop with a dent like it stopped something once. You buckle it on with help. You pretend it fits. You pretend it helps. You pretend. Because pretending is all you have left between you and what comes next. The helmet is last. It's too tight across the brow. It shifts when you walk. You can't see much through it. Or hear. The world becomes narrow. Muffled. Like watching your life from inside a bucket. You nod when they ask if it fits. Because you're tired. Because they're tired. Because no one here has time for adjustments. Only orders. You think armor will make you feel strong. It doesn't. It makes you feel slow. Off balance. Sweaty. Like you're being crushed inch by inch, not by an enemy, but by expectation. Every piece you strap on is another reminder that you're not ready. Not trained. Not equipped. Just required. Walking in armor is like arguing with yourself. Your legs want to move. The metal says no. Your arms want to lift. The weight says later. You stumble. Not often, but enough that you notice. Enough that others do too. They don't laugh. They don't speak. They just shift their eyes somewhere else, like your failure might be catching. You learn quickly where the pain comes from. The collar that rubs your neck raw. The leather straps that pinch your ribs with every breath. The plates that dig into your hip when you try to sit or lie down or simply exist. You try to adjust. You try to ignore. But the armor doesn't forget. It marks you. Rubs your skin to bruises. Leaves your shoulders purple and yellow like someone tried to paint you in suffering. And then there's the smell. Not yours. Not yet. The armor's. It smells like someone else. Someone long dead. Sweat that soaked in and never left. Blood that washed off the surface but not the memory. You think you catch a whiff of fear. Not metaphorical. Actual. The sourness of adrenaline gone stale. You wonder if anyone ever cleaned this. If anyone dared. If fear can become permanent. You decide it can. Training in armor is short. Not because it's efficient. Because it has to be. You're shown how to hold your shield. How to thrust your spear. You practice footwork, clumsy in the press of iron and cloth. You lunge. You falter. You breathe like a man choking in slow motion. But you do it again. And again. Because you have to. Because the captain is watching. Because the world is ending soon, and it might begin with your name. You eat less now. Not by choice. The belt is tighter. The armor presses into your gut. Chewing feels like a luxury. And sleeping? Almost impossible. Because the bruises throb. Because the padding traps the heat. Because lying still in armor feels like waiting for a coffin to close. You take it off at night. Not all of it. Just enough to remember your skin. But even then, you dream of pressure. Of metal clanging when no one's nearby. Of footsteps too heavy to be your own. There are ranks, even in ruin. The noble sons wear brighter metal. Finer cut. Their joints articulate. Their helmets gleam. They move like dancers. You move like furniture. They don't speak to you. But they watch you. Not out of malice. Out of measurement. Because if you fall, they'll need someone else to take your place in the line. You wonder how they fight in this. How they run. How they breathe. How they scream. You wonder what it sounds like inside the helm, when the world goes red and the sword swings down. If it echoes. If it rings. If it sounds like regret. Sometimes, when the sun is just right, the armor heat. Not warm. Scalding. Your skin prickles. Your back sweats. Your vision blurs. You try not to faint. You try not to fall. because no one will catch you. And if they do, they might strip your armor for parts, because metal is precious, and you are not. You start naming your pieces. The helmet is guilt. The chestplate is memory. The greaves are silence. It helps. A little. Because when you buckle them on, it feels like conversation. Like greeting old ghosts. Like saying, yes, I remember. Yes, I'm still here. Then comes the day you see someone fall. Not in battle. In camp. His leg gives. His ankle snap. The armor catches the rest of him and drags him down like a promise. He cries out. Not from pain. From shame. Because now everyone knows he's not strong enough. The captain doesn't speak. He just looks. And the man is left there. Until the medics come. Until they decide whether he stays. Or is stripped. And sent home in shame. You'd almost rather die. Almost. Because there's something worse than wearing armor. Being told you don't deserve it. You learn to move differently. Smaller steps. Shorter breaths. Guarded swings. You stop trying to run. You start trying to last. Because battles aren't won in bursts. They're survived in inches. And your armor isn't built for winning. It's built for delaying the inevitable. The weight becomes familiar. Like sorrow. Like expectation. You stop noticing it until it's gone. When you remove it to clean the straps, your body feels foreign. Too light. Too soft. Naked, even in cloth. And when you put it back on, it feels like returning to something cruel and necessary. Like responsibility. Like death's uniform. There's a moment late one evening when the sun strikes your armor just so. You look down and see the gleam. For a second, you imagine you look like a knight. Like the paintings. Like the poems. And then you cough. And the dust rises. And the bruise on your arm throbs. And the illusion dies. Because you're not a hero. You're a placeholder. A meat shield with a name. And this armor? It isn't yours. It never was. It belongs to the war. And you? You just wear it. No one tells you when battle starts. Because it doesn't. Not all at once. It bleeds in slowly. Quietly. Like rot. You wake earlier now. Not because of orders. Because of fear. Because you dream in steel. Because you hear the distant creak of leather and the faint whisper of sharpened blades even when there's nothing but wind. You eat in silence. You piss in silence. You think in silence. Because every sound feels borrowed. And borrowed things break. You're near the front now. Close enough to smell it. Not smoke. Not fire. People. Sweat. Filth. That metallic breath of blood and nerve. You recognize it instantly. Because it lives in your own mouth. You are the battlefield before it begins. The camp sprawls over the hill like a wound trying to scab. Tents of every size. Fires that don't smoke enough. Men that whisper more than they speak. There's a captain for every 100. A knight for every 50. A priest for every hope. You're not sure which matters more. They all pretend to know what comes next. But you see it in their faces. They're waiting to. Waiting is its own kind of death. Because it stretches you. Thins you. Turns every second into a question with no answer. What if they charge at dawn? What if your spear breaks? What if your foot slips? What if you forget how to breathe? You don't know. So you sit. And listen. And pretend you aren't unraveling. Drills continue. Formations. Practice thrusts. But they feel empty now. Mechanical. Like chewing after the taste has gone. Your arms remember what your mind refuses to hold. The man beside you says nothing. You don't know his name. You stopped asking. Because names don't matter anymore. Only positions. Only silence. Every now and then, a scout returns. Sometimes they speak. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they come back with less than they left with. An eye. A hand. A name. You try not to look too long. Because you're afraid you might see your own future wearing someone else's face. Letters arrive. Not often. Not regularly. But when they do, they come with the weight of 100 voices. You don't get one. You don't expect one. You watch others read, smile, cry. One man burns his without opening it. You understand. Sometimes it's easier to carry a burden than to unwrap it. The food changes, not in taste, in portion. It gets smaller, because supplies don't march as fast as fear. You chew slowly, not to savor, to make it last. You dream of bread the way poets dream of glory. You clean your armor again, not because it helps, because it gives your hands something to do, because every scratch is a memory, every dent a whisper. You polish around the worst ones, leave them visible, a private tally of the times you survived something not meant for you. There's talk, always, talk of the enemy, too many, too well armed, too fast, too close. No one agrees, but the fear is consistent. You hear it in the way voices drop, in the way men sharpen their blades more than they speak, in the way even the bravest stop singing at dusk. Dusk is the worst, because the firelight flickers just enough to make the shadows move, because everything becomes a shape, a silhouette, a maybe, because you can't trust your eyes, only your heartbeat, and even that lies sometimes. The priests come tent to tent, offering blessings, words, right? You let them mark your forehead. You don't know why. Maybe it helps, maybe it doesn't, but it feels like doing something. And something is better than stillness, because stillness is what happens after the screaming stop. You start to see shapes in the smoke, not real ones, memories, ghosts, faces you buried under time and distraction. They watch you, they wait. You try to look away, but they're always where your eyes land next. The night calls for readiness, whatever that means. Check your gear, check your limbs, check your faith. No one laughs. No one has the breath. You do it anyway. Out of habit. Out of fear. Out of a quiet, cold hope that maybe, just maybe, being ready will change the outcome. You know it won't. But you check anyway. A rumor spreads. Tomorrow. At dawn. Or midday. Or nightfall. No one knows who started it. But it spreads faster than fire. And burns twice as long. You feel it behind your eyes. In your teeth, like static. You try to sleep, you try, but the ground is cold. Your heart is louder than the wind, and every time your eyes close you see the hill, the field, the enemy, or worse, you see nothing, just black, just end. You open your eyes, you stare at the tent ceiling, and you wait. Morning doesn't come, it crawls. A slow, gray ooze of light over the horizon. You're already awake. You never weren't. You sit up. You gear up. You don't speak. No one does. The air feels thick, like breathing through wool. You step outside, and everything is still. Too still. Like the world is holding its breath, and you are the reason. But nothing happens. No horn. No charge. Just waiting. Just one more day. You go through it again. Drill. Sharpen. Sleep. Or try to. Because the worst part of war isn't the battle. It's waiting for it. Because you know it's coming. You just don't know when. And that's the kind of fear that digs deeper than any sword. And never lets go. You don't hear the order. You feel it. Like thunder in your chest. Like a weight pressing down behind your ribs. The horns blow. The banners lift. And everything that was still starts moving. Too fast. Too sudden. Like waking from a dream straight into a fire. You're not ready. No one is. But readiness was never part of the plan. Only motion. Only obedience. Only charge. Your captain shouts. Words. Maybe a prayer. Maybe a name. You don't catch it. Because your helmet is on. And your blood is loud. And the world has narrowed to a slit in your vision and a heartbeat pounding in your ears. You grip your spear. You tighten your shield. You take the first step. Then another. And another. And then you're running. The ground is uneven. Muddy. Rutted. Broken by boots and hooves and history. Your feet slide. Your balance shift. But you keep going. Because to stop is to die. Because the men behind you don't stop. Because the charge is a tide. And tides don't turn back. You feel the formation ripple. Not break. Not yet. But it bends. Because not every man runs the same. Some run with rage. Some with fear. Some just run because it's the only thing left to do. Your legs burn. Your armor clinks. Your lungs seize. And still you run. The field opens up ahead. You see them. The enemy. Not clearly. Not yet. But enough to know they're real. Enough to know they're waiting. You think they look like statues. Until they move. And the distance closes. And the shouting begins. Screams rise like smoke. Your own voice joins them. Not a word. A sound. Raw. Animal. Fear disguised as fury. You never knew you had that sound inside you. You do now. And it won't be the last time you hear it. Arrows whistle overhead. Some fall short. Some do not. Men drop. Not with ceremony. Just down. Like sacks of flour. Like puppets with cut strings. You keep running. Because the only thing worse than falling is stopping. Closer. You can see their faces now. Painted. Screaming. Calm. Each one its own answer to the question of death. You lower your spear. You brace. You scream again. And you hit. The clash is not a moment. It's a blur. Noise. Heat. Pain. Your shield jars. Your arm bends. Your feet slide. A face comes at you. You stab. Did you hit? You don't know. You swing again. Everything is too close. Men push. Weapons flail. Blood sprays. You lose sight of the ground. You lose sight of your friends. You lose sight of everything but survival. Your body remembers more than your mind. It ducks, twists, reacts. A blade grazes your side. You grunt. You pivot. You thrust your spear into space and hope it finds flesh. It does. You feel it stop. You feel it sink. You feel it leave your hand. Now you are shield and fist. You bash. You shove. You claw. You don't know who you're hitting anymore. You just hit. Because if you don't, someone else will. And they won't stop. You fall. Not far. Just enough to see the mud up close. To see a tooth. A coin. A child's doll. You scramble back up. No one notices. No one helps. Everyone is too busy dying. You hear a horn. Or maybe a scream. Or maybe your own breath roaring in your helmet. You look left. A man is on fire. You look right. Another is on his knees, weeping. You look forward. And a sword finds you. Pain is white. White hot. White sharp. White sudden. Your shoulder blossoms with it. Your shield drops. You swing your arm and the world spins. You don't fall. You just forget how to stand. Time becomes a trick. Is it a second? A minute? An hour? You're still alive. You think. You crawl. You rise. You find a rock. A stick. A sword not yours. You keep fighting. Because that's what's expected. Because there's nothing else to do. Because if you stop, you disappear. The enemy shift. They move back. Not far. Not fast. But enough. Enough for someone to shout. Enough for someone to cheer. Enough for the men around you to think maybe, just maybe, this isn't the end. It might be victory. It might be retreat. It might be a trick. You don't care. You breathe. You stand. You watch. And the ground drinks the blood beneath your boots like it's been thirsty for weeks. When it stops, it doesn't feel real. The silence feels wrong. Too clean. Too quiet. You can still hear the screams. Still see the faces. But they're not there. Only you are. You and what's left. The dead don't look like stories. They look like you. Twisted. Open. Unnamed. Some wear your side's colors. Some don't. Some have no faces left. You step around them like broken furniture. You step over yourself. Your spear is gone. Your shield is cracked. Your hand won't stop shaking. You tell yourself you won. You don't believe it. Because the real victory isn't about land. It's about standing. And right now, standing feels impossible. You find a patch of grass. You sit. You breathe. Not deeply. Not calmly. But enough. Your lips taste like iron. Your hands don't feel like yours. You touch your shoulder. You wince. You smile. Because pain means you're still here. For now. Someone passes you a canteen. You drink. It's warm. Bitter. You drink anyway. Because water is life. And right now, you need as much of it as you can steal. Night falls. And you don't sleep. Because the charge plays behind your eyes. Because the charge echoes in your bones. Because part of you is still running. Still screaming. Still fighting for breath. And the other part? The other part is waiting. For the next horn. The next shout. The next command. Because this was just one charge. And war doesn't stop. It only waits. Like you. And tomorrow? Tomorrow charges again. The charge was only the beginning. It felt like the storm. But it was just the wind before it. The clash, that's the storm. And you are standing in its center. It happens so fast, and yet it lasts forever. Two tides meet. Flesh against flesh. Blade against bone. You don't hear it the way you thought you would. Not clangs or heroes' music. No. It's more intimate than that. More human. More horrible. It's the sound of grunting. Of breath being knocked out. Of feet slipping in blood. Of men whispering apologies as they kill. It's the gasp when a sword opens a stomach. The rattle when a man tries to scream without lungs. The silence that comes too late. You don't remember drawing your weapon. But it's in your hand. Heavy. Wet. Not yours. You swing it anyway. Because you have to. Because you want to live. Even if you're not sure you deserve to. The man in front of you is the enemy. Not because of what he did. Because of what he wears. And because someone said he should die before you. So you try. You lunge. You miss. You try again. He does too. You don't know how many times you swing. You don't count. There is no count. Only instinct. Only survival. Only the terrifying clarity that the only reason you're alive is because someone else isn't. Your body aches, but you stop feeling it. Your shoulder is dislocated. You can still lift your arm. Your hand is bleeding. You still hold the blade. Because if you don't, you become the silence. The line wavers. Men shift. Men fall. A friend cries out. You turn your head. It almost kills you. A spear glances off your shield. You feel the shock up your spine. You almost drop it. You don't. You bash. You kick. You crawl over the body in your path. You keep going. Your ears ring. A bell of pain behind your temples. Voices become echoes. Orders sound like thunder. You move not because you hear, but because everyone else does. And if you stop moving, you vanish. There is no time in the clash. Only motion. Only eyes wide with panic. Teeth bared in confusion. Only the strange moments that last forever. Like when a sword misses by inches and you remember the smell of your mother's hair. Or when you see a man trip and it looks like he's praying. You begin to forget where you are. You begin to forget who you are. You become hands. A scream. A shadow with a job. You stop asking why. Because the only question that matters is, are you still breathing? And the answer is never certain. You find yourself pressed against another man. So close your helmets touch. You see his eyes. He is younger than you. You are scared. So is he. You swing. He stumbles. You stab. He falls. And you keep going. The clash smells like blood and shit. No one talks about that. What happens when fear lets go of the bowels? When men die without grace? When bodies make noise long after they've stopped moving? It's not glory. It's not honor. It's stench. You slip. You fall. Your hand is in something soft, wet. You don't look. You just rise. And you keep going. Because you have to. Because the line is moving. And if it moves without you, you'll be left behind. And behind is death. A trumpet blows. It sounds like salvation. It isn't. It just means reposition. You move. Half a step, then more. Dragging your body like a sack of pain. Finding your place again in the chaos. Your teeth hurt. You didn't know fear could do that. Clenching so hard it grinds you from the inside. You try to breathe through your nose. It's broken. You bleed down your chin. You wipe it away. Because blood on your face is better than blood in your eyes. A man beside you drops. His helmet rolls. You kick it out of the way. Not out of cruelty. Out of necessity. There's no room for mourning. Only inches. Only breath. Only the next swing. It ends slowly. Like the tide going out. No signal. No peace. Just less motion. Fewer cries. More breathing. And the stunned silence that comes when you realize you are still standing. Somehow. Still here. You look down. Your hands don't feel like yours. Your blade is chipped. Your shield is gone. Your legs tremble. But they hold. You look around. And there are fewer of you now. Many fewer. But not none. And that matters. You think. No one cheers. No one celebrates. There is no victory song. Just ragged breath, and the grim inventory of who is missing, of what was lost, of how long you have until the next clash. Because there will be another. There is always another. War is not a battle. It's a rhythm, and you have learned the beat. The clash is over, but the echo remains, inside your skull, inside your bones, inside your breath, and tomorrow it begins again. The clash is over. But the silence is worse, not because it is quiet, but because it is honest. The first sound you hear is breathing, not your own, someone else's, rasping, wet. You turn. You wish you hadn't. What used to be a man is trying to sit up. He won't. He can't. You watch him die anyway, not out of cruelty, out of stillness, because you cannot move. Not yet. The field smells like iron and rot. Flies are already gathering, already laying their futures inside what was once someone's brother, someone's son. The sun climbs. You don't. You just stay there, crouched, unmoving, listening to the flies. Eventually someone tugs your arm. A voice. Get up. So you do. And your knees nearly buckle. Because you were not meant to carry this much weight. This much armor, this much grief. You stand anyway, because everyone else is watching, and men who fall now do not get up again. The wounded scream, not loudly, not anymore. They've run out of voice. Now they moan, or murmur, or blink slowly, like maybe blinking is the last thing they remember how to do. You walk past them, not from cruelty, but from helplessness. Because there are too many, and you are only one. The dead lie as they fell, some with arms raised, some with mouths open, some still gripping weapons. The expressions don't go away. They stay frozen, etched into flesh that will never explain. You recognize a face, a boy from the camp. He used to sing. Now his throat is open in a way no song will ever leave again. You try not to step on anyone. You fail. You feel something crunch under your boot. You don't look down. You just keep walking. Because the living have to keep moving. Or they join the stillness. There is no glory here. Only sorting. Who lives? Who dies? Who can walk? Who must be carried? Who gets a bandage? Who gets a prayer? And who gets a shallow hole and no name? You find your captain. He has a gash across his thigh and an expression that says the pain hasn't reached him yet. He's chewing something. You don't ask what. You don't speak at all. He doesn't notice you. Or maybe he does and chooses not to. Because in this moment, leadership is the heaviest thing a man can carry. He is already sinking. You sit. You take off your helmet. You place it beside you like it's a person. You stare ahead. You don't blink much, because blinking means closing your eyes, and closing your eyes means seeing the things you've been trying not to. You stare at nothing, because it stares back more gently than memory. Someone offers you water. You drink. You forget to say thank you. You forget your name. You forget where the wound is until you try to stand. Then you remember, because the blood doesn't ask permission before dripping. It just leaves, like everything else. The medics work without voices. They carry what they can. Cut away armor. Tear cloth into strips. Pack wounds with moss and faith. There are too many. There are always too many. One asks your name. You pause. Not because you don't remember, but because you aren't sure it belongs to you anymore. You give it anyway, in case it needs a place to go. The looters come next. They don't call themselves that. They say they're reclaiming supplies. But you see it. The way they move. The way they search. Not with reverence. With hunger. For coin. For steel. For anything that will make this slaughter feel less like loss and more like trade. You watch one pry a ring from a swollen finger. You say nothing. Because you're not sure he's wrong. You try to wash. There's a stream nearby. It runs red at the edges. You dip your hands. The cold bites. You don't mind. You scrub. It doesn't help. The blood is gone, but the feeling stays. You look at your reflection. You don't recognize it. That's the first honest thing you've felt all day. Night comes too soon. You lie down in your armor. You do not dream. Not because you are at peace. Because your mind refuses to replay it. You're grateful. Until the morning. When it returns anyway. In flashes. In noise. In a scream that you're not sure came from you or someone else. It doesn't matter. It happened. And it will happen again. Because the aftermath is not the end. It is the beginning of the next silence. And the next march. And the next death you have to walk past. Without looking down. The battle is done. But the war keeps going. Not outside you. Inside. It begins with a cough. Dry at first. Harmless. Dust in the throat. Smoke from the fires. Nerves maybe. You tell yourself it's nothing. You've been telling yourself that a lot lately. But this time it listens. And answers back. You wake with sweat down your spine. The fever comes gently. Like a whisper. Like a mother's hand on your forehead. But it doesn't comfort. It boils. From the inside out. You shiver. Even when the sun is high. Even wrapped in cloth and wool and whatever prayers you still remember. None of them help. Your wound looks small. Just a scratch, really. You laughed when it happened. Didn't even bandage it right away. But it remembers you. And now it festers. Dark around the edges. Hot to the touch. It smells wrong. Like meat that begged not to be cooked. You touch it. Your fingers come away yellow. And you stop laughing. The medic gives you a poultice. Herbs. Mud. A cloth soaked in wine. He says it will draw the poison out. You believe him. Because you have to. Because the alternative is watching your own skin betray you. And you've already been betrayed enough. You try to eat. The bread turns to ash. The broth turns your stomach. You try to drink. Your lips crack. Your teeth ache. The water slips down like it knows it doesn't belong. You keep it down. Sometimes. The others avoid you. They don't say it. But they step wider around your bedroll. They don't meet your eyes. Like sickness can leap from glance to glance. Maybe it can. Maybe it already has. The smell gets worse. It clings to your blanket. Your skin. Your thoughts. You wonder if rot has a voice. You think you hear it. Late at night. Calling your name from inside your own chest. You see things. Not dreams. Not quite. Men you buried walking past your tent. Mothers you left behind holding empty plates. A priest whispering psalms you don't remember learning. You ask the man next to you if he saw them too. He shakes his head. You don't ask again. Your fingernails darken. Your breath thickens. You sleep all day and still feel tired. You feel hollow. Like something is scooping you out one spoonful at a time. And filling you with nothing. They call it the rot. Quietly. When they think you can't hear. Some call it corruption. Some call it God's judgment. Some just say, he's got it. Like a curse. Like a sentence. You stop moving. Not by choice. Your legs won't answer. Your arms feel like wet cloth. You want to sit up. You want to run. You want to scream. You don't. Because even your mouth is tired now. One morning, you feel better. Just a little. Enough to sit up. Enough to taste the broth and not vomit. Enough to think maybe, just maybe, you're not dying. You smile. You even laugh. And that night, the fever returns. Worse than before. Like it was waiting for you to let your guard down. You lose track of days. Of time. Of names. You forget the captain's face. You forget your own. You forget what it felt like to be clean. To be whole. To be afraid of anything other than the slow, wet sound your chest makes when you breathe. They move your bedroll farther from the others. Not cruelly. Carefully. Gently. Like you might break. You already have. But you let them pretend otherwise. Because pretending is the only mercy left. The priest comes. He doesn't bring holy water. Just words. He doesn't ask if you believe. Just speaks. Softly. Like prayer is not for saving. Just for company. You wake to rain. Cold on your face. You smile. Not because it helps. Because it reminds you what clean felt like. Even for a moment. Even if this is the last one. And then it fades. The fever breaks. The cough softens. Your wound crusts over. Not healed. But quiet. The rot recedes. Like a tide. Like a ghost. Leaving you behind. Thinner. Weaker. Older. But still breathing. And that, somehow, feels like a victory. Until you stand. And realize the others don't look relieved. They look afraid. Because you survived something they haven't yet. And now you carry it. In your skin. In your eyes. In the silence between steps. And the rot never truly leaves. It just moves deeper. Where no one can see. Except you. You don't know when it ends. Not the war. The marching. The dying. The screaming. It just stops showing up one day. Like a drunk father who finally leaves for good. No goodbyes. No celebration. Just silence. And then, orders. You can go home. If you still have one. You pack slowly. Not because there's much to carry. But because you don't know what to take. What still belongs to you. Your blanket. Your rusted dagger. The letters you never opened. You leave the armor. It never really fit anyway. You leave the spear. You were never good with it. You keep the belt. Because it's yours. Because it held you together when nothing else did. You walk. No formation. No captain. No flag. Just dirt and silence and the occasional man heading in the same direction with a limp and 1,000-yard stare. You pass villages that don't wave. Women that don't look up. Children who hide. You understand. Because war has a smell. And it doesn't wash off. You try to remember the road home. It feels different. Like it resents you for leaving. Like it hopes you get lost. The trees are taller. The streams murkier. The air heavier. Or maybe you just see things differently now. Maybe you left your old eyes behind. Back in the mud. With your old voice. Your old laugh. Your old name. You pass the tree where you carved your initials. They're still there. But the bark has grown around them. Swallowed them. Like the world doesn't need to remember who you were. Only that you were once young. Once foolish enough to think you'd return the same. Your village appears like a memory. Soft around the edges. Smaller than you remember. Quieter. You stop at the gate. There's no guard. Just chickens. And the wind. You wait. For what, you don't know. No fanfare. No welcome. Just your own footsteps echoing off walls that forgot you. Your mother is older. Her hair more gray than brown. Her hands shake when she opens the door. But she knows you. Even through the beard. The scars. The silence. She knows you. And she cries without sound. You stand there. Not knowing what to say. Because words are too clean for what you've seen. So you let her hold your hand. And for a moment you remember the boy who left, not the man who came back. Your house is the same. Mostly. The floorboards still creak. The roof still leaks. But your bed is there, made, waiting. You sit on it like it might break. Like you might. The blanket smells like herbs. Not blood. Not sweat. You close your eyes. You breathe. And you wait for the nightmares. They come. They always do. Faces. Screams. That awful crack a bone makes when it's split. You wake in a sweat. You don't scream. You just sit there, shaking, until the sun rises, and you become the mask again. The one that smiles. That says, "I'm fine," when no one's really asking. People visit. Not many. Some don't know what to say. Some say too much. One calls you a hero. You nod. Because arguing takes energy. Because they want the story. The victory. Not the rot. Not the charge. Not the boy who died with your name on his lip. So you lie. You tell them what they want. And they leave satisfied. And you go back to staring at the wall. You try working. The fields. The forge. The animals. But your body is not the same. Your back aches. Your grip falters. You forget things. You drop tools. One day, a cow startles you. You fall. You don't get up for an hour. Not because you're hurt. Because the ground feels safer. Less demanding. Less surprised when you break. You visit the graves. Names you remember. Some fresh. Some marked only by stones. You talk to them. Not out loud. Just in your head. Because part of you is still out there. With them. And it always will be. You laugh once. Really laugh. Something stupid your brother says. And for a moment it feels real. Until it echoes. And the echo sounds like a scream. And you stop. And you excuse yourself. And no one stops you. Because they know. Even if they never say it. You get used to the stares. The whispers. That's him. He came back. He survived. Like survival is a miracle. Or a curse. You aren't sure which. One night you light a candle. You stare at the flame. You watch it flicker. And you ask it to forgive you. You don't say for what. It knows. And it dances. And it listens. And it does not judge. You begin to walk more. Into the woods. Down by the stream. To the edge of the fields. You don't know why. Maybe to feel small again. Maybe to be alone where it doesn't feel like punishment. Maybe to look for something you left behind. You don't find it. But the quiet helps. Sometimes. You start mending things. Not big things. Small ones. A broken chair. A cracked cup. A fence post. Your hands remember how. And for a while the work is enough. The cracks still show. But they hold. And that's something. You see another soldier one day. Cross the market. He walks like you. Eyes down. Shoulders heavy. You nod. He nods back. Nothing more. Because nothing else needs to be said. You both made it. You both didn't. And that is your story now. Home is not what it was. But neither are you. You sleep more now. You eat when you can. You speak less. But when you do, people listen. Because your voice carries a weight they can't name. Because silence doesn't need to be loud to be heard. Because you are proof that a man can break and still return. Even if he leaves pieces behind. Even if the door never fully opens again. Even if home isn't what it was. It is still here. And so are you. It doesn't end with trumpets. It ends like this. A bowl of cold soup. A stool by the fire. The creak of wood. The quiet breath of a room that holds only one name. Yours. Years pass. But you don't measure them in seasons. You measure them in aches. In dreams you no longer tell anyone about. In the way your fingers bend slower. In the way your heart doesn't race anymore. Even when it should. You still sleep light. A branch snapping can wake you. A cough can freeze you. You tell yourself it's nothing. But your body remembers. And it always will. The neighbors call you quiet. They say you keep to yourself. That you work hard. That you speak little. Some call it humility. Some call it shame. You call it survival. Because words are heavy, and silence is all you can carry some days. You don't talk about the war. Not because you forgot. Because you didn't. Every detail is still there, filed away behind your eyes, waiting. But the people who ask, they don't want truth. They want stories. And you're not a storyteller. You're a survivor. And those aren't the same thing. You see boys play with sticks, pretending they are swords, pretending they are brave. You say nothing. You just watch, and wonder who will call their names when they don't come back. Sometimes you go to the edge of town, where the trees begin. You sit on a stone. You listen to the wind, and in the hush between gusts, you swear you hear it again. The charge, the clash, the screams, your own voice lost in the mess. You sit there longer than you mean to. You come back when the shadows stretch. People ask where you go. You say out, because any more than that is too much. You keep a box. Inside, a token, a broken buckle, a dented flask, a strip of cloth stained dark. You don't open it often, but you don't throw it away, because some things aren't meant to be forgotten, even when they hurt, especially then. You write a name sometimes, in the dirt, in the steam on a window. You wipe it away before anyone sees, because grief doesn't age like wine. It spoils, and you've already drunk too much of it. Sometimes you find yourself talking, to no one, to someone. You're not sure. You ask questions you don't want answered. You laugh at things no one else hears. You whisper promises you know you can't keep. And then you stop, because the silence returns. It always does. You grow old, or older. The aches deepen. Your steps shorten. Your hands tremble when the wind is cold. But your eyes stay sharp, watching, waiting, for nothing, for everything. One day a child asks what it was like, the war, the soldiering, the killing. You look at them, too young to understand, too young to carry what you still hold. You smile, and you lie. It was long, and that is the truest lie you know how to tell. There is a graveyard now. There wasn't one when you left. Now it stretches, stone after stone. Names you remember, names you forgot. You walk there sometimes, run your fingers over letters carved in lichen. You speak their names, soft, like breath, like prayer, like apology. At night you sit by the fire. It cracks, it hisses, it dances. You stare into it until your eyes blur. And you whisper, still here, to the fire, to the past, to the silence, to yourself. And the fire answers, not in words, but in warmth, in the way it holds the darkness back. If only for a while, if only until morning, because some things never leave. Not the blood, not the screams, not the cold, not the fear, but you. You stayed, you lived, you carried it, and you didn't let it carry you. And now, in the stillness, in the final hush of this long and bitter song, there is only one thing left, silence, and it is yours.